I'm not too far from home this morning, only having to drive an hour from Salem. Salem's my hometown. I always tell folks I'm from the hills of Denton County. Our family's been there for 7 generations, and I'm the 4th generation owner of our family farm. I raise beef cattle and a few hogs. Not as many hogs as this gentleman right here, but a few hogs. I have a small business that I've had for over 10 years. You know, it's pretty good whenever you actually have to balance a budget, live within your means, and an elected official that knows how it feels to sign the front of a paycheck, not just the back of it. That's what we need more of in Jefferson City, and that's what we need more of in Washington, D.C. I'm currently the Speaker Pro Tem in the Missouri House, actually the youngest Speaker Pro Tem in the Missouri House in over 100 years. Before that, I was the Majority Whip. I'm the most senior member in the Missouri House of Representatives. At 32, you know, age is an issue. Some people say that, so I look older because of this receding hairline, but that's all right. But you know, out of 163 members, I was first elected on a special election back in 2005 in an area that hadn't been held by a Republican in 22 years. And we were able to do it in a special election then, and we won by 10 percentage points when many people didn't think that this young guy could possibly win at 25. But you know, age is just a number. It's about experiences, and what we need in Washington, D.C., in my opinion, is more of the Missouri experience. You know, in Washington, D.C., they have a lot of experience, is what I tell people. You know, that could be the problem, is they have too much of the wrong experience. And in Missouri, I have what I call the common sense Missouri experience. We actually balance budgets in Missouri. In Washington, D.C., they passed trillion-dollar deficits. You know, in Missouri, we have a AAA bond rating. In Washington, D.C., we have more than $16.4 trillion in debt. Folks, that's a problem. In the state of Missouri, I passed a bill last year to reduce regulations. I was upset that Missouri had over 6,000 regulations on the books. And they never got off the books. They stayed on the books forever. And these regulations are what's hurting small businesses and family farmers and just individuals in every aspect. But there was no process to get these rules off the books. We put forth a process that every 5 years the agencies had to review these rules to see, do they cause an undue burden on small businesses? Are they the most narrowly tailored to carry out the purpose? Are they duplicated? Are they beyond statutory authority? It's amazing some of these agencies and commissions try to pass rules and regulations that are beyond their authority. And a lot of times it's overlooked. Well, what this does, it requires these agencies every 5 years to review them, and if it doesn't fall within these guidelines, they have to take them off the books. There's over 170,000 pages of rules at the federal level. Folks, that's crazy. I was upset over 6,000 rules, period, in Missouri. In Missouri, we have rules on the books that said if you had a landline phone, if you had a small business, you had to have a landline phone. I mean, that's the kind of rules that was on the books in Missouri. I mean, affecting businesses. Times are changing. You don't have to have landline phones to operate a business. You know, if you want to have a cell phone, have a cell phone. But at the federal level, some of the rules that we see passed are in regards to child farm labor laws. I mean, that's ridiculous. Why does the federal government need to tell us, you know, how old you can be to work on the farm? At 6 years old, I was bucking hay on my grandfather's farm. It's just something that what we do. You know, we don't need the government telling us that we can't do it. You know, folks, Washington is headed in the wrong direction. You know, people ask me, why are you running? You're 32 years old, why are you running for Congress? And I always tell them I'm tired of watching Washington not genuinely solve the problems. It's like they continue to kick the can down the road. Look at the issues. I mean, we have failed to balance the budget 51 out of the last 56 years. To balance the budget, we've balanced it only 5 times in the last 56 years. How often do you balance your budget at your home? You have to balance your budget or you're not going to have a home. You know, the federal government hasn't even passed a budget in over 1,400 days, let alone balance it. That's a problem. One of the biggest issues that we face at the federal level is our fiscal irresponsibility. watching how we're spending our money. That is one of the biggest national security threats that we could have. The last thing we need to do is to be indebted to other countries like China. And it's happening. They have the second most amount of bonds owned in the country. You know, we've raised our debt ceiling limit over 70 times since 1962. In the early 80s, our national debt was $1 trillion. Now it's over $16 trillion. That's in 30 years. Folks, that's something to be concerned with. We have to constantly work to do the problem. And you know, in Washington, it's going to take some time. You can't change it overnight. But you have to be willing to be part of the discussion to try to make a difference. And you got to understand that there's problems. And also know that it's okay to be conservative. But you also govern. And you need to work with people. You're never going to find anyone. No one in this room will agree with you 100% of the time. But when you disagree, you need to respect each other's differences and be able to cooperate. Not compromise, but cooperate. In D.C., that's the problem. No one is cooperating. You know, they refuse to even look at each other in a lot of sense if they're on the wrong issue. You can always find a point where you can agree with someone. You may not agree with them all the time, but you can find someone that you agree with. And if we actually care about our state, if we care about our country, we're going to have to work together.